Growing up in Cedar Springs, I always felt like a shadow in my family's spotlight. It was a small town where everyone seemed to own a piece of the stage, dirt roads winding past picket fences and friendly faces. But amid the twinkling lights of the town's festivities, I faded into the background, forever a mere silhouette beside the brilliance of my sibling, the golden child, the one wrapped in my father's unwavering adoration while I was left unnoticed. Even the family dog seemed to wag his tail a little harder whenever they entered the room. I chased after achievements like a moth drawn to a flame, believing that if I just tried hard enough, if I just worked longer and pushed myself further, I would earn a place in my father's heart. I joined the debate team, studied late into the night for math competitions, and spent countless weekends volunteering at the local community center. Each time I brought home a ribbon, a trophy, or praise from my teachers, I could almost feel my father's gaze lifting off my sibling long enough to acknowledge my presence. But those moments were fleeting, whisked away in the tides of parental favoritism. The comparison was always there, lurking like a shadow. I could hear my father's voice echoing in my mind, "Why can't you be more like your sibling?" Every remark about my siblings' accomplishments stung like a bee that wouldn't let go. Times when my father praised their grades or athletic performance felt like darts striking my heart. I still remember the time they scored the winning goal during the finals of the soccer championship. My father had hoisted them into the air, his laughter cascading across the field like music, while I sat among my peers, clapping half-heartedly, feeling like an even smaller shadow than before. I had scored a perfect score in my calculus exam right before that match, but my father didn't seem to remember it at all. It was just another hollow accomplishment that faded into the background of my siblings' achievements. But today was the day that shattered whatever little hope I had left of being seen. The sun poured through the tall kitchen window, light streaming in and illuminating the breakfast table where my family usually gathered. I could smell the warm scent of pancakes wafting through the air, mingling with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. My mother hummed softly as she flipped the pancakes, sunlight glinting off the small rings of her brown hair. She always tried to maintain harmony at the table, but she couldn't stave off the impending storm brewing beneath the surface. "Harper, did you see the news about your siblings' business venture?" my father casually announced, still preoccupied with his phone as he scrolled through notifications. "They are going to need some investment to get started, so I transferred $50,000 to help them out." The words hit me like a slap to the face, ringing in my ears as disbelief washed over me. $50,000. My heart raced as I looked at the faces around me. My sibling sitting there with a grin as bright as the morning sun practically radiated excitement. I swallowed hard, trying to piece together what I had just heard. I didn't even have enough savings to cover my rent, let alone pursue the business idea I had been nurturing quietly in my mind. This was the harsh wake-up call I had been fearing, the realization that I had been living in a world where my efforts were invisible next to the gleaming opportunities afforded to my sibling. My fingers curled into fists beneath the table, a swell of anger mixed with a bitter sadness threatening to rise like bile in my throat. "That's great," I finally managed to say, though the words dripped with sarcasm. "Must be nice to have a safety net like that." "What do you mean?" my sibling responded, oblivious to my pain, their smile still plastered across their face. "I worked hard on this business plan. You know this is my dream." "You mean your dream funded by our father?" My voice was sharper than I intended, and I could feel my mother's hesitant gaze flicker between us. She wouldn't intervene, she never did. "Not everyone has that kind of help. Some of us have to do it alone." "Harper, knock it off," my father interjected, finally looking up from his phone. "This is a fantastic opportunity for your sibling. You should be supportive instead of feeling sorry for yourself." Supportive. Those words jabbed at me like a splinter, prickling the inside of my skin. I clenched my jaw. Supportive? Is that what you think I am? Not. I've achieved my own things too, you know. I looked down at my plate, the once inviting food now a reminder of all the accomplishments that had gone unnoticed, all the moments that were waxed over with the glaze of family preference. "It is just money. Money doesn't mean anything unless you make something of it," my father countered, the dismissiveness in his tone tightening the knot of frustration in my throat. "I didn't give it to them lightly. They deserve it." "Deserve it? What about my work?" I shot back, a mixture of despair and indignation rising in my chest. "Nothing I do seems to matter compared to the things they achieve." I felt my cheeks flush hot, the hurt and anger brimming almost to the surface. "Do you even see me? Do you even catch a glimpse of what I worked to build?" "Harper, please," my mother chimed in softly, placing a hand on mine. Her touch was comforting, but it did not quell the storm brewing inside of me. "You cannot overshadow everyone's happiness with your bitterness." "Bitterness?" I echoed, almost incredulous. It felt like I had shouted into a canyon, my words lost among its walls. "This is not bitterness. This is clarity. It is merely recognizing where I fit in, or rather where I do not." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the wooden floor, ringing through the silence like the sound of a bell tolling. My food lost all its allure, and suddenly I felt boxed in, the walls of the kitchen closing in on me. "I need some air." I barely managed to say before I stormed out of the room, not looking back. The cool air hit me like a splash of cold water as I stepped outside, shoving my hands deep into the pockets of my jacket. The world felt too open, too expansive, like I was being swallowed whole by a void that welcomed all but me. I walked down the driveway and into the quaint little world of Cedar Springs where the streetlights flickered and children played. I felt utterly alone. I could hear laughter and chatter from nearby houses, families gathering for breakfast, sharing warmth in a world that I could no longer relate to. The more I wandered, the heavier my heart felt, weighed down by the knowledge that my father had forged an unbreakable bond with my sibling, while I remained a ghost in the corners of our shared history. Eventually, I made my way into my room, where I slammed the door behind me, my sanctuary becoming my prison. I could feel the tears welling up, blurring my vision as I sank onto my bed, the quilt that was supposed to offer comfort now suffocating me like a heavy cloak. My gaze fell to the wall where pictures of family moments hung, my sibling receiving awards, my father smiling wide, and I was always just there. I couldn't recall a single photo that celebrated my success or shared a moment where I was the star of our story. I let my tears flow freely, dripping onto my pillow like tiny raindrops. I swore to myself that I wouldn't be overlooked anymore. With every bead of salt that slid down my cheeks, a resolve took root within me. I could no longer live in someone else's shadow. I was tired of chasing a distant acknowledgement that felt like a mirage. It was time to forge my own path and carve a niche in a world where I wasn't just the other one. I clenched my fists once more, the raw determination flaring brighter than the pain that had so often held me captive. I was determined. This new chapter in my life wouldn't simply be about me getting noticed. It would be about me rallying everything I had within me to rise from the ashes of our family's favoritism. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow that painted my walls, I made that promise to myself. I would step into the light and break free from the mold that had long defined me. Little did I know this was only the beginning. I spent another night hunched over my laptop, the warm glow from the screen illuminating my tired eyes as I scrolled through countless articles, YouTube tutorials, and online forums about building an online business. Every click felt like a step closer to my freedom, yet my heart ached with the weight of my family's indifference. I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear and bit my lip in concentration, the faint sound of my siblings' laughter echoing from the living room. It pierced through my focus, pulling my thoughts in two directions, the dream I was nurturing in secret and the reality I despised. You should have been there, Harper. It was amazing. My sibling's voice trilled with excitement, punctuated by my father's rich baritone chiming in, thick with pride. We're going to take the business to the next level, and with your skills, we can really scale. You have such an eye for detail. Each word was a jab and affirmation of my exclusion. I glanced away from the screen, imagining for a moment what it would feel like to be celebrated rather than overlooked. But I quickly shook off the dream. My hands trembled as I typed out questions to potential suppliers. The clock ticked loudly in the silence, marking the time passing by and the opportunities slipping through my fingers. I whispered to myself, just stay focused, stay strong. The noise from the living room bubbled up, an unsettling reminder of my siblings' high-flying venture backed by my father's financial support. A snappy tagline here, a flashy advertisement there. My sibling was living the life I always envisioned. A surge of resentment coursed through me, igniting my determination. I could not continue to hide in the shadows of my family, suffocating under the weight of their praises. I had to prove to myself that I was capable of building something worthwhile, even if it took me longer with nothing but my own scant resources. I pushed myself to focus, researching every component of launching an online business. What are dropshipping options? How do you create a website? What is SEO? Those words danced in my mind like a chaotic symphony. I penned notes in a tattered notebook, filled with messy diagrams and rushed ideas. My stomach gurgled, reminding me I hadn't eaten for hours. I wasn't about to let basic needs derail me, though. I can do this. This will work. I just need to keep chipping away, I told myself firmly. The hours blurred together. I had discovered something I had long forgotten gave me strength, my passion. I was building something solely for me, despite the gnawing pit of envy fueled by familial favoritism. I clutched my phone, hesitating before texting my mother, my only ally in this labyrinth of emotions. Hey mom, how are you? The dots blinked on my screen as she quickly responded, I'm good. Just finished helping your sibling with their new website. It's looking great. I felt a heat rise through me, simmering just below the surface. That was my mother's ultimate validation to my sibling's effort, and here I was, standing in my corner, desperately trying to carve a path without any financial leg-ups. I forced myself to reply kindly, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear it. Are you still working on your idea? I think you have so much potential. You just need to get started. The well-meaning words stung like a bee sting. What did she know? The warmth of her support felt distant when juxtaposed against recent recollections of standing alone at family gatherings, with my accomplishment overshadowed by look at my siblings' new office space or who saw the new products they're launching. It felt as if my efforts dissipated like dew under the sun, evaporating in the family constellation where I was but a dull star, far too overshadowed to shine. Mom, I am trying. I'm working really hard, but you know things take time. I tapped the screen harshly, wanting her to truly understand my struggle, to get a glimpse of the fire burning inside me. If only they knew how much my heart raced with determination, how many nights I stayed up fueled by dreams instead of sleep. I know, honey. Just remember, even big dreams take small steps. I bit back my frustration, clenching my fist. Maybe small steps are all I can afford to take. I didn't mean to sound so harsh, but the truth flipped over like a raw wound, exposing the bitter reality of my situation. My sibling with their figured path through our father's resources, and here I was, a gladiator without a sword. The echo of laughter wrapped around me again, clashing against my determination with sharpened disdain. I could feel it gnawing at my insides. You are enough, I whispered to the walls around me, urging myself to believe it. There was a beautiful desperation in talking to myself, as if I needed to convince my restless heart to hold on just a little longer. As the night deepened, I made the decision. I would gather every skill I had, from negotiation and marketing knowledge to design ideas, sketching logos on scraps of paper all around me. It was a chaos of ambition drawn together under a single goal: to stand on my own feet one day, finally independent from our father's generosity. Each small achievement felt monumental. I found an affordable platform to build my website, and with every stroke, I poured a piece of my soul into it. Just imagine if I actually do this. What if I could reveal it all one day? I spoke softly, picturing the moment I could stand up, a triumphant phoenix rising from the ashes of favoritism and inadequacy. Then suddenly, a flood of thoughts came. What would my family feel? How would my sibling react? Would they look at me with envy, the same way I felt towards them? Or maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of something that could even heal the rift. Maybe they would recognize me for who I truly was. It was another sleepless night, defined by the clashing thoughts spiraling within me, warring against the family ties that felt as confining as chains. Yet under all of it, I could feel a simmering anger, a resolve that was surging, begging to surface. It was time to prepare for the unveiling, a day when I could expose the truth to them, that I was not the lesser sibling, not a defeated shadow cowering behind the brilliance fueled by their favoritism. Dawn broke, streaking the sky in shades of gold and blush. I paused for a moment, my heart racing with the excitement of what lay ahead. The sunlight poured through the window, bathing me in warmth, a glow that seemed to whisper encouragement. I took a deep breath, sipping on the last remnants of my cold coffee, and settled my fingers on the keyboard, ready to dive deeper into this newfound world. I will make this happen, I declared firmly to myself, shaking off the weariness that had settled deep in my bones. More than anything, I wanted this moment to be my resurrection, my rebellion against a life dictated by opinions not my own. I was ready to face whatever storms lay ahead, and I would fight tooth and nail to not just be recognized, but to stand proudly as my own person. Carved from my dreams in blood, sweat, and tears, the scent of rich garlic and rosemary filled the air, mingling with the laughter and chatter that echoed around the dining room like a symphony of warmth and togetherness. Flickering candlelight danced on the walls, casting playful shadows that seemed to taunt me as I sat in my usual place at the long table, my heart heavy and my spirit weighed down. It was a beautiful gathering, a family holiday adorned with twinkling lights, piles of food, and beaming smiles. But to me, it felt like a scene from someone else's life, one where joy was abundant and fairness existed. My siblings sat at the other end, their laughter bright and effortless, and for a moment I could almost convince myself that everything was normal. Almost. I watched as my sibling effortlessly held court, engaged in some delightfully charming storytelling, their hands sprawling expressively, keeping everyone's attention riveted on their clever anecdotes. They were the shining star this evening, the golden child, as usual. I could feel the resentment knitting itself deep within me, like an unwelcome guest that arrived uninvited and made itself at home. I couldn't shake the feeling that every chuckle, every cheer, every "you always know how to make us laugh" was directed my way too, a constant reminder of how little I seemed to matter in this self-proclaimed family circus. Across the table, my father, with his proud chest and glimmering eyes that seemed to reflect nothing but love for my sibling, leaned in to wrap his arms around them for a tight embrace. "You've done so well," he beamed. "I just cannot express how proud I am of you. To think how far you have come since starting that business. Just look at your success. You make everything seem so easy, son." My stomach turned. There they were, the kind words I had craved for so long, offered so freely, so carelessly, as if my existence on this very planet had always been secondary. All those years of hard work, sleepless nights filled with anxiety, and the relentless pursuit of validation somehow paled in comparison to my siblings' seamlessly unfolding story. I grasped the edge of the table with trembling fingers, channeling my unwillingness to remain mute in the face of this growing tide. "Dad," I heard myself saying, my voice an unsettling mix of defiance and trembling vulnerability, "can we talk about this?" My heart thudded loudly in my chest, a cacophony of racing thoughts urging me to pull away from this brimming edge, but the words were already spilling out before I could collect them. Silence fell around the table, the kind that buzzed with apprehension and disbelief. "What's wrong, Harper?" My father raised an eyebrow, his flushed cheeks fading slightly as the laughter around us began to quiet down. Concern cut through his jovial demeanor. Even my siblings' mirth faded, their brow knitting together in confusion. I could feel the eyes of all my relatives on me, a growing circle of suspicion as if I were a character in a one-act play ready to reveal some grand secret. Nothing, I managed to say, forcing myself to look down at my plate, my heart rattling in my chest. Or maybe everything. The tension thickened further as I glanced at my sibling, who was now leaning closer, concern etched on their face. What was I expecting? Empathy. In that moment, it felt like there was a chasm between us, a great divide that had existed all these years unnoticed. Oh, how I wanted to take a deep breath, let it settle, and smile through the madness, but those tiny shreds of resolve ignited something deeper inside me. It felt powerful, almost electric, pouring out of me in a wave of raw truth. I cannot keep pretending everything is fine, I finally said, my voice trembling slightly but steady enough to echo around the room, cresting with fierce determination. Dad, I have worked so hard for everything I have ever achieved, but no one seems to notice. While you shower my sibling with praise and support, I have barely gotten a phone call to check in since moving out. Why is that? Gasps rippled through the room, an explosion of surprised curiosity. I didn't care about the way the sunlight, fading outside the window, cast long shadows over our dinner plates, or the smell of delicious food that lured everyone's thoughts away. All I could hear was the pounding of my heart, the rustle of my own words reaching the farthest corners of my family's minds. What are you saying? My sibling's voice cut through the air like glass shattering. Their expression was bewildered, searching for a way to grasp the reality I was throwing at them. Dad has no favoritism, you know that. But it feels that way, I pressed, not willing to relent. Do you know how much effort it takes to make something work while constantly feeling overshadowed? I remember spending weekends studying my college courses while you spent yours at the lake, and I want to know why it is okay. I want to know why I am expected to succeed without any of the rewards or recognition that you have been given. I don't know what you want from me. My sibling exclaimed, their voice rising to something sharp and defensive. Maybe if you had tried harder, you wouldn't feel this way. It is harsh but true. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Aching disappointment clawed upward from my core. Unintended tears threatened to spill, blurring the faces of the family members gathered around the table, their expressions wrapped in unwanted tension. I rapidly blinked them away, not wanting to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing me vulnerable at that moment. I am tired of trying harder. I am tired of standing in your shadow and being compared to your successes like a trophy to be displayed while everyone claps their hands. My worth is not simply measured by my failures, nor should I be asked to feel grateful for being lesser in your eyes. A mix of gasps and murmurs filled the room as I took a breath, reveling for just a moment in the stillness that had settled like fog. My heart raced, feeling raw and exposed, but a sudden surge of power coursed through me, compelling me to continue this cry for validation, even as the air between us condensed, ready to explode. What revelations might tumble forth? What could follow this moment of catharsis? I grasped the edge of the table firmly, fists clenched, as my father stared at me, a look of hurt creeping into his gaze. Honey, we never intended, but that's it, I interrupted, the fire in my belly roaring back to life. Your intentions don't matter anymore. All these years I've felt invisible, all your good intentions pushed aside. I fought so hard to keep up, to earn a mere fraction of your love, attention, and admiration, only to be continuously left in the dust, living on scraps, hand-me-downs, while my sibling got the gold, the accolades. It's exhausting and demoralizing. The rhythm of the conversation slowed, a reverberation of uncertainty filling the air. My father, brow furrowed in thought, looked pale against the backdrop of festive decorations. The echoes of my unvarnished truth hung between us like a fragile crystal chandelier teetering on the edge. My sibling opened their mouth, perhaps to console me, but I raised a hand, stopping them mid-sentence. What was I supposed to think? I continued, the adrenaline fueling my voice. When I watched you, Dad, pore over your business plans with constant energy only to gloss over my career path like it didn't matter. When you called my sibling to reduce their stress about a crucial meeting while I burned the midnight oil to meet deadlines with no recognition. When was I ever deserving of a simple, well done, Harper, or I know this is tough for you? A thick silence followed, the type of silence that swelled and waited for truth to burst free from it, and in that pregnant stillness I found focus. It felt like an opening, not the end, but the door to something much bigger. Could it be that I was finally being heard? I began to realize that standing in this place of vulnerability had given me a strength I didn't anticipate. You deserve to be seen and appreciated, I finally whispered, emotion spilling over to the edges. And I deserve it too. The crack in my voice felt like a release, but still not fully filed away. Was this what I had needed? The recognition that I existed, that I was worthy just as much as my sibling. I wasn't asking for comparisons, I just wanted to be me, acknowledged and loved regardless of how I measured against my sibling. As my words settled, my father's expression shifted from shock to something softer. I never wanted you to feel this way, he murmured, almost inaudibly. I've always loved you, Harper, but I see now how my actions didn't reflect that love. I struggled against emotions spilling within, the thought that perhaps after all these years I had finally found the strength to draw a boundary in the most daunting realization. I didn't need to be a trophy, I just wanted to be a person. I looked at my father, taking his unwelcome admission as a starting point, a way to reshape this warped narrative of my existence. My heart ached still, but there was hope, and perhaps, just perhaps, we could mend what had been broken. In the stillness that followed, the gathered family reached for their glasses, the clinking of crystal providing a counterpoint to the emotional tumult. The warmth of unity felt bittersweet, but suddenly the music played a little softer, and the lights felt a little brighter, as if acknowledging my truth had lit a flame within the suffocating darkness of favoritism. And maybe, just maybe, this was one way to reclaim my place, my worth, with strength born from the most unexpected of moments. The air grew thick with tension, the silence almost suffocating as I stood there holding the phone in my shaking hands, waiting for someone to break the numbness that had settled over us like a fog. The yard, once filled with the sounds of laughter and joy, now felt eerily still. My father's face paled as he stared at the screen, those familiar crinkles of confidence evaporating faster than the last rays of sunlight. What is this?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper, as if he feared that raising it would shatter the image he had so meticulously curated for all of us. "This is the truth, Dad." My voice was steadier than I expected, the clarity of my intent sharp as a knife. I tapped the screen, bringing up the first screenshot. "Here is where you offered financial help to my sibling, $50,000, which you flaunted like some sort of trophy while I built my business from scratch." The image filled the air with a heavy weight, darkening the mood even further. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each thud echoing the gravity of the situation. My siblings' stammering quaked the silence. That was just a loan. The defensive edge to their voice was a desperate plea for validation, but it rang hollow in the face of the evidence. "You know I needed it for school, Harper. Then why do you still have it?" I shot back, my gaze piercing through their flimsy excuse. "You're out of school, remember? I watched you talk about how you splurged it on fancy dinners and vacations. Was it really necessary for you to flaunt your endless supply of cash while I was stuck sweating away on my online business?" My words hung in the air like a challenge demanding acknowledgement. I moved on to the next screenshot, but I could see the disbelief swirling in my father's eyes. "All those sacrifices I made, working endless hours while I pursued every possible avenue to make something of myself, and this is what you choose to reward," I exclaimed, glancing at him for an instant before shooting my focus back to my sibling, whose face was now flushing a shade of dark crimson. "Dad, this isn't fair," my sibling exclaimed, desperation creeping into their voice. "You know how hard I worked. I was just trying to get ahead, and it's been awfully easy, hasn't it?" I interjected, frustration bubbling over. "You were the star, the golden child who could do no wrong in his eyes." The resonance of my voice echoed, bouncing off the tension-laden air until it felt like the sunlight couldn't burn through the humidity of anger and disbelief, while I was just the shadow ignored and overlooked. "Stop it," my father interjected, raising his hand almost instinctively as if to physically shut me up. "This isn't helpful. You are misunderstanding the entire situation. I have always pushed both of you to be your best." I leaned forward, driven by a relentless wave of energy surging through me. "Push, is that what you call it? You pushed my sibling with padded money bags while I struggled to find my footing. That's not pushing, that's favoritism. And you can't blame me for wanting your acknowledgement. You were always there cheering for them from the sidelines." The chaotic whirlwind of accusations stirred deeper, and I could see the storm brewing behind my father's eyes. "No, Harper, you're wrong. You're twisting everything," he argued, his voice rising now, trembling with both outrage and fear. "You three always think I have some sort of hidden agenda. I never meant for it to be this way. You never meant for it to be this way," I reflected sarcastically, a bitter chuckle escaping my lips. "But here we are standing in the wreckage of your carefully crafted narrative, Dad. The minute something was asked of me, I went above and beyond, yet you chose to ignore it. Is this about revenge?" my sibling asked, their voice shaky, panic evident. "Because it feels like you're just trying to drag me down." In an instant, I could feel my frustrations tighten around my throat like an iron band. "No, it's not revenge. It's about finally standing up for myself," I said, every word dripping with long-held resentment. "I built my business from the ground up. I didn't whine and pout for favors. I worked my fingers to the bone for every little thing I achieved, juggling a million projects just to catch a glimpse of Dad's pride. Look at me, look at what I've managed to achieve against all odds, and all you do is stand there feeding into their entitlement. I didn't make you struggle, Harper." My father shouted back, his frustration boiling over. "Who taught you how to work hard? Who molded you into the person you are today? Someone who never celebrated my victories," I shot back, insistent. "I didn't need permission or guidance. What I needed was recognition. You give them everything. I had to fight for your attention." The air crackled with hostility, layers of unspoken truths resurfacing like volatile gas bubbles threatening to explode. "Do you think it's easy being in the spotlight?" My sibling interjected, their tone defensive now but tinged with a spark of understanding. everything that comes with it, the pressure, the expectations. It's not easy to perform when everyone is watching and you've no idea what that's like. Then you should have thought about that before you accepted money that wasn't yours to take, I shouted, feeling the heat of indignation rising. While I've toiled just to scrape by making ends meet, building something out of nothing, you've had everything handed to you. Maybe we should all just calm down, my sibling suggested, glancing around nervously as if seeking an escape route. This is getting out of hand. It's too late for calm, I replied with a steely gaze. This is about unearthing buried truths that have been festering beneath the surface for far too long. Anguish etched across my father's face froze me momentarily. It stung to see him trapped in the wake of my revelations, sputtering without a solid response. You think I didn't want to help you? He finally asked, his voice softer now, but laced with disbelief. I didn't know you felt this way. I've always tried, always tried. I cut him off again, my heart racing with a mix of fury and defiance. No, this isn't about what you did, it's about what you didn't do. I remember countless family gatherings where I poured my heart out and the only response I got was silence. Do you remember our last family dinner, when I told everyone about my recent success? All I got was polite nods and an eye roll from you just before you bragged about my siblings' latest achievements. Those were achievements, Harper, my father insisted, his desperation palpable. Achievements worthy of our pride, but at what cost? I pressed as I shifted through the files on my phone, revealing video clips this time. Closer, I noticed the harsh glow of my phone screen against our surroundings, almost surreal against the tension enveloping us. I played the first video, my sibling reveling in the glee of the financial benefits they received. Laughter filled the room as they boasted to a group of friends, making jokes about how easy it was to make a quick buck off the gifts. There, do you hear that? I gestured toward the screen, desperate to make them understand how those words cut deep. You think I can ignore what you said and act like it's okay? It's not okay, my sibling blanched as the laughter echoed in their ears. Look, it's just a joke. You know how kids are, they fumbled for a way out, running their fingers through their hair as if by sheer force of will they could erase the evidence. Kids, oh please, that's not just kids being kids, I guffawed, incredulous. That's you prancing around like a leech on our parents' generosity. Don't play that game with me anymore. I have watched you play it long enough. My father's expression shifted as if he was coming to grips with a storm he'd unknowingly created. I had to make a choice. You two had different paths. Your choices hurt one of us, I interjected, my voice filling the space where a loving father should have shielded me from this reality. A clear bias favoring one over the other without taking the time to recognize effort. Judging by potential alone, not desire. Can't you see how damaging that's been? In that moment, a chasm began to form between us, revealing cracks that had long remained hidden beneath familial love and expectations. I glanced at my sibling, who looked stricken, torn between guilt and disbelief, and it dawned on me that perhaps this chaos was necessary. Finally unearthing emotions buried under years of neglect, maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to bridge that chasm that I felt widening around us. Dad, I said softly, for I finally saw his face illuminated by a flicker of understanding. I want you to understand that I am fighting for all of us. Not against you, but against the very division we always ignored. And in that moment of uncertainty, everything felt heavy yet empowering. I'd unveiled the evidence that might just free us all. What began as burden-sweetened revenge had shifted into a cathartic truth, one that caught us in its tide, leaving us disoriented but undeniably closer, ready to rewrite not only my own narrative, but that of my entire family in the days following that monumental confrontation, when all the unspoken tensions and buried resentments erupted into a volcanic clash. I felt a strange mix of triumph and relief. My father, usually so steadfast and unyielding, was now floundering like a fish out of water. He had put so much effort into shoring up the walls around his empire of favoritism that he had failed to notice the cracks forming beneath him. I could almost sense the tremors of panic in his voice when he tried to do damage control. Harper, he had pleaded during one of those strained phone calls, his tone laced with the desperation that used to lie beneath the surface of his authority. You have to understand, I did what I thought was best for the family. I understand perfectly, I shot back, irritation flaring within me. What you thought was best for the family was to ignore me. You just didn't want to own up to how you always favored my sibling. You gave them everything. Just the words everything filled me with a sense of fire, igniting that resolve I had nurtured within me after months of pain. He stammered for a moment, almost as if he could physically feel the walls closing in. I thought they needed more support. Support, I interjected, my voice rising as adrenaline surged through me. Support, I built my business from the ground up. Do you even know how much I have accomplished? No, Harper, he admitted, the defeat in his tone as bitter as the coffee I had been nursing that morning. I haven't kept up. I should have listened more. Those words, heavy with realization, hung in the air like the smoky tendrils of incense from the ritual I had performed in my private space. I had burned it as a declaration, a way to cleanse the past and step fully into the future. The bitterness of neglect was almost palpable, but it would not drown me. I still felt my heart racing at the thought that my father still could not see my worth. As days turned into weeks, I poured my energy into my online business. The notifications of sales rung like music in my ears. Each ding of a successful transaction felt like a hammer driving deeper into the foundation of my father's empire, leaving cracks that would only grow wider. The satisfaction bubbling within me was intoxicating, a sweet nectar that made every late night and every second of hard work worth it. My first significant sale came from a stranger named Mia. She had stumbled upon my unique handcrafted candles, each one a blend of scents that reflected different emotions. I remember the rush I felt when I read her glowing review. These candles transformed my home into a sanctuary. Brilliant, my heart swelled not only from the compliment but from the knowledge that this success was entirely my own. It felt like liberty drifting on the gentle breeze of independence. I wasn't just stepping out of the shadows, I was leaping into the light. Every morning, I woke up to the aroma of the fresh coffee brewing and the anticipation of another busy day. My workspace, a small corner of my bedroom, was cluttered but cozy. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating my materials, jars of wax, wicks, and a kaleidoscope of fragrance oils. I felt determined as I watched the colors dance together in the containers, merging into something beautiful, just like I was merging into my own vibrant self. I was in control, the architect of my destiny. Late one evening, after I had completed a particularly large order, I even caught a glimpse of my reflection in the darkened screen of my laptop. I smiled. It was different now. I no longer saw a girl yearning for approval. I saw a warrior standing on the battlefield of her own choosing, ready to fight for everything I deserved. The lingering feelings of neglect seemed to dissipate into the air. Those changes in me did not go unnoticed. One evening there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find my siblings standing there, an almost shy smile on their face. "Hey," they said, looking awkward but hopeful. "Can we talk?" "Of course." I stepped aside, allowing them to enter, but my heart raced with uncertainty. I had spent so much time wallowing in the thought that my sibling had everything handed to them, while I struggled to carve my own path, that I had forgotten the bond we once shared. They looked around my space, their eyes lingering on the candles stacked on my desk. "You really did this, didn't you? I mean, built this whole business. It's incredible." "I did," I said, pride swelling in my chest. "Every cent, every design, it's all me. No help from anyone, especially not Dad. I never realized how hard you worked," they admitted, a hint of regret coloring their voice. "I was just so caught up in everything he told me, I never gave you a chance." I paused, swallowing the bitterness that threatened to spill out. "It's okay. I understand that he installed this view of us in your mind. It is a cycle we just had to break away from, right?" The air felt heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken truths between us. I stepped forward. "You can see it now, can't you?" They nodded, visibly shaken. "I do, Harper. I can see how hard you fought. Maybe we can start over. I'd like to understand more about what you've built." After that night, I felt the shift in perception that had long evaded me. They reached out on social media and started sharing my business pages, rallying their friends and creating buzz. I was grateful because it wasn't merely acknowledgement but a budding connection. One afternoon, as I packaged orders in the sunlight spilling through my window, my father called again. "Harper," I wanted to say, "I see that you're doing well and I should recognize your efforts more." The chill in his tone indicated there was condescension hidden within his words. But this time I didn't lash out. Instead, I embraced the growth in me. "Thanks for noticing, Dad. I have worked hard for where I am today. It was a long road, but it has been worth it." "I always assumed you would go into something more conservative, more steady," he continued, the skepticism still evident. "You took the risk to go the creative route, and people may not always come through for you." "Valid point, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "But I have learned that sometimes risks can be more rewarding than security. You should try to understand that." "I will try, I guess," he conceded, sounding hesitant. That tiny spark of hope ignited something inside me. Maybe, just maybe, my father could transform one day. As the days turned into weeks and business flourished, I discovered something truly beautiful. My past didn't define me anymore. I had cultivated a new life, rich with possibility and a sense of purpose that had lingered just beyond my reach for so long. My family began to wrap their heads around my accomplishments, no longer defining me by my father's past decisions and the misguided favoritism. One night, I hosted a small launch party. My living room was lit with flickering candlelight, creating an atmosphere of warmth and camaraderie. Friends and family mingled, celebrating my success. Among them, my siblings stood with a group of friends, laughing and sharing stories of my journey. "Can you believe how far she's come?" they shared, pride evident in their voice. "She's built this incredible empire all on her own. I mean, these candles smell amazing, and they mean something too." The joy bubbling within me created an embrace of warmth that wrapped around my heart. I was finally being seen for who I truly was, an independent spirit with dreams and ambition. My family's laughter mingled with the scent of the candles, a fragrant reminder of resilience and the triumph of reclaiming my narrative. Later that night, as I poured myself a glass of celebratory wine, I gazed around the room. Each face glowed in the dancing candlelight, their voices mingling into a melody of support and admiration. In that moment, I felt a surge of power swell within me, a feeling of liberation wrapping around me like a shawl. I had conquered my fears and insecurities, emerging stronger than ever before, standing on the brink of new beginnings. With my family finally acknowledging my successes and my own heart blooming with independence, the past felt like a distant echo. I turned back to the table, my eyes dancing over the rows of candles I had affectionately crafted, each one a symbol of the journey I had embarked upon. The past no longer defined who I was. It had become a foundation upon which I built something far greater. With renewed energy swirling within me, I lifted the glass of wine towards the flickering light of my candles, whispering to myself as if sealing a secret pact with the universe, here est to victory and new beginnings. My heart raced, and I felt ready to embrace what lay ahead, unshackled from the remnant chains of favoritism, stepping boldly into a future rich with possibilities.